We'll start here in just a minute, give people some time. Any questions before we begin? All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So last time we began the chapter on the 7 letters and the recitations. Someone remind me what's the difference between, or what are the letters referring to?
The different words used for different.
What's that called in general? Dialects, right? And what is the dialect? What is the dialect?
Like cold, pop, soda. Like that.
Yeah, well, I'll explain it.
I don't know.
Classes and language based on a group or particular people.
Okay, within or under the umbrella of within the same language, right? So one language, however, different word choices, or maybe different ways of pronouncing that word, whatever you want to say. What are the recitations?
The different ways that words could be recited on different to sound different rules and maybe slight differences in tajweed.
Tajweed, right? We're referring to primarily tajweed. How do you recite the Quran? Not what is being recited, but how do you recite it? What are the rulings around that? So that's in general. All right. Now going back to the book, page 45, Sheikh Farhan gives us different ways the different letters can manifest. So one is differences in word structure from singular to plural, masculine to feminine. So between the different letters, between the different ahruf, the difference can be in terms of how a word is conjugated, whether it's plural or singular, whether it's in the masculine or the feminine form, right? So that's one way. Past, present is another way. Number 2, what tense is that the verb in? So I'm just making this up. For example, if there's a verse, for example, that says, قالت الأعراب آمنا, right? The Bedouins said the following, the past tense. Maybe in a different letter, different dialect, or different letter, it could be يقول الأعراب or تقول الأعراب آمنا. The Bedouins are saying, right? So that's in terms of tenses. Number 3, slight variances in the sequence of letters or words, meaning switching one letter for another or one word for another. For example, in Surah Al-Qari'ah, we recite it كالعهن المنفوش. In another letter, it could have been كالسوف المنفوش. Ahin and suf are generally the same thing, right? Ahin refers to a certain cloth type that is of varying colors, right? Whereas suf is a certain cloth type, specifically wool, right? Now ahin, I'm guessing, is probably a type of wool, but they're 2 different words. Number 4, slight differences in word order, as I showed you several weeks ago. One verse might say, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَهُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. Indeed, Allah, He is the self-sufficient and the praiseworthy. Whereas in another letter, it could be وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ, without the huwa, right? So taking a word out or adding a word. And then finally, or number 5, differences in vowel markings, the harakat, the diacritical marks. There could be slight differences in that. Number 6, the addition or subtraction of a letter or word. I just gave you that example. Number 7, slight differences in pronunciation, which is not a big deal. All right. Is the concept of letters clear? Different recitations. There are 10 accepted recitations. I'm not familiar with recitation, so I can't give you what those 10 are, but I gave you 2 of them. The primary one that's recited today, and that is Hafs, right, and Asim, and then the second most common, which is Warsh. And then beyond that, there are different kinds. All right, any questions on the letters and the recitations? Is that good? All right, chapter 10, Tafsir. The word tafsir goes back to the root fassara. Once again, people online, I do apologize. I don't have a new cord yet. Hopefully this. The word tafsir comes from the root fassara. Right, fassara. And fassara means to expand on something. To expand. I'm sorry, not to expand. Sorry, that's Sean. To clarify. Means to clarify, right? To explain, expound, okay, I guess, make clear, yeah, clarify, interpret, etc. When we talk about tafsir of the Quran, we are talking about the process or the attempt to clarify what the Quran is saying, right? Now, in the context of hadith, what do we call the study of hadith? No. What is the verb that we use to talk about, explaining hadith? Sharh, right? Sharh hadith, whereas in Quran, it's tafsir Quran. Sharh means to expand. Right? And I think it's interesting why the scholars chose 2 different words to explain or to reference the Quran versus the hadith. Perhaps it's more out of respect to the Quran, additional reverence to the Quran, because sharh is to expand on, as though the information that's given isn't sufficient, right? Whereas when you talk about tafsir, you're trying to clarify what's there. You're not trying to expand on it, so to speak. Although, in here, in the book, it says to expand on, expound. But I just want us to focus on this, right? Hadith, accordingly, when you look at these 2 words, hadith is more complex and complicated to understand than Quran. Quran is easier to understand in comparison to hadith. Right? Now, some people might be thinking, how is that the case? Well, when the Prophet says, eat with your right hand, that's pretty straightforward, right? Sure, that part is pretty straightforward, but is that an obligation or a recommendation? This is where hadith becomes a little bit more complex, more nuanced in the Quran. The language of the Quran is much more black and white. That's just the way Allah structured it, right? So when Allah says kuffar in the Quran, that's a serious thing. I mean, you're talking about the people who consciously reject what they know to be the truth. That is how kuffar is used in the Quran, the vast majority of the time. Whereas in hadith, no, kuffar could be referring to somebody who simply does not identify as a Muslim because they never heard of Islam yet. So some guy in the remote forests of the Amazon who's never heard of Islam, we still call him a kafir, even though they still haven't been tested. Whereas the Quran is talking about the people have been tested and they reject it, right? Again, generally speaking. So sharh of hadith, to expand on, we're trying to find the gaps that are between us and the hadith so that we properly understand the hadith. And please take this as a general rule. Assume you don't understand a hadith until you see what the scholars say. I don't care how easy it is, how simple it is, how straightforward it is. Do not assume you properly understand a hadith until you see what the scholars say. Because people have waged war against the world because they misunderstood a hadith. I think I've already told you that, right? The Quran, now I'm not saying, anybody can open the Quran and understand it, right? But when it comes to the process of understanding the Quran, your goal is really to clarify what's being said, not so much to expand or to find the gaps, because it tends to be pretty straightforward, all right? So when we talk about tafsir al-Quran, it is the attempt to clarify what is there. And of course, the importance should be pretty obvious to this group. But you will find people from your family members and whatnot who come and say, why do I need to go to the scholars to understand the Quran? I could just read it myself. I speak Arabic, right? And, to an extent, somebody who is fluent in the Arabic language will be able to grasp a lot of the basic concepts, right? But not all of it. And the real challenge isn't one of language. It is the challenge of intention. What are you really pursuing? Because the Quran says, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. The Quran causes many people to go misguided. And it causes many people to become guided. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Quran in a way where it weeds out the good from the bad. It's truly phenomenal, right? And so anybody who approaches the Quran with an ill intention, the Quran will actually work in a way to manifest that ill intention. Truly remarkable. In other words, if somebody wants alcohol to be permissible, they will somehow read into the Quran in a way that tells them it's impermissible. Now that's pretty scary. It becomes scary. Why? Because, I can't guarantee myself that I'm, A-okay, right? So while, anybody who's fluent in the Arabic language can have a healthy amount of access to the Quran, the scholars and tafsir come in as a type of guardrails, all right? It protects us. So if I were to show you a type of analogy here, imagine this is I-5, right? Now, there are a bunch of lanes. And this highway is all going one direction. And it limits you in terms of where you can drive. You can drive here, there are 5, 6 lanes, but you can't go beyond that, right? The highway limits you. Also, as you're driving, you come across mountains, hills, etc., and you'll find that the road curves, right? To accommodate those, that terrain. So similarly, when you build a connection with the Quran, you need to have this roadmap. You need guardrails so you don't fall off course. Those guardrails are tafsir, right? What the scholars said. And no, this isn't, scholars are infallible beings. Scholars are, oh my God, there's a saints chosen by Allah and this type. We don't have a pope in Islam, nor will there ever be a pope in Islam. And when there was an attempt to make a pope by the politicians, it was shattered by the scholars. We refuse to have a pope, one person who determines what Islam is and isn't, right? But rather, tafsir is basically 1,400 years of literature, right? And these guardrails essentially represent the consensus, what all the scholars agreed when it comes to the Quran. That when Allah says, Aqimus Salah, establish your Salah, it's referring to the 5 daily prayers. Even though the word Salah can mean a few different things. It means the 5 daily prayers. That's your guardrail right there. Wa'atu zakah, give your zakah. It's referring to the obligatory act of paying zakah. That's your guardrail right there. But when it comes to something where the scholars differ, let's say, I'm drawing a blank. Whatever it is, let's say they differ on the understanding of a verse, that's your lanes. This scholar went this way, this scholar went that way, but all in all, they're all going the same direction. You have room to maneuver, right? You're on this lane, you know what, times are coming. The contemporary reality is actually causing Muslims to slow down as a result of this opinion. Well, there's another opinion, let's switch lanes and pass, right? So you have the leeway to move within these, right? So that's the importance of tafsir. Now, when it comes to how tafsir is performed, this is what's called the methodology, right? Remember, I talked about this. Was it? Yeah, I think at the beginning of the semester. What we need to do, what helps when it comes to conveying what we believe in to a broader audience, is to show that there's a clear methodology. Yes, when it comes to the compilation of the Quran, right? The way I tried presenting the compilation of the Quran is that there was a specific methodology that was used. And what makes that significant, why that's important, is because when there's a methodology, you can follow, you can trace the way things were done. And now you can more clearly test it. Was it done correctly or incorrect, right? So similarly, tafsir has a methodology. There's a certain method the scholars have followed in order to first, properly approach the Quran, and second, give others the ability to test the information that the scholar is presenting or asserting. All right. So what we're going to do here is to start going through that methodology step by step. So step one, when we try to understand the Quran, the first and most accurate resource that we can go to is the Quran itself. All right. In other words, the best way of explaining the Quran is through the Quran itself. How does that make sense? I mean, you try to explain something, how do you explain it from itself? It's like saying, I'm defining a word by using that word in the definition. Remember that? English teachers, made our lives a lot more difficult because we couldn't use the word that we're trying to define in the definition. So how does this work? I mean, are we using the Quran to define the Quran? The answer is as follows. Step one is the Quran. The Quran, as you are already aware of, will present a certain topic multiple times. And in each time, the extent to which it provides details and information about that topic differs. So you look at the story of Musa alayhi salam, what part of his story the surah is presenting will differ. In some surahs, it presents his early life, like Surah Al-Qasas, and doesn't really talk about later, afterwards. Other surahs, it talks about his time when he was in Egypt with Fir'aun, like Surah Al-A'raf, expands on that a lot. Other times, it talks about post-Egypt, after the Exodus, like Surah Al-Ma'idah or Surah also A'raf. It goes into great detail, right? So you have different places that expand on a certain idea more or less. So when it's spoken about in a limited fashion, we can go to the places that have more information to better understand the smaller context, right? Similarly, words. Sometimes a word will be used, although you understand the linguistic definition of the word, the linguistic meaning of the word, the way it's being used might have a little bit of ambiguity as a result of the context. But in another part of the Quran, it actually expands on that. So one example is in Surah Al-Fatiha, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. All right. The path of those who you have bestowed your favor upon. Okay. Now, I know what this word means. I know what this word means. But who are they? Who are these people? This verse doesn't give us information about who the people are that Allah has bestowed his favor upon. Right? But you go to Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عليهم من النبيين والصديقين to the end of the verse والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. So Surah Fatiha, it says the people you bestowed your favor upon. It doesn't clarify who those people are. In Surah An-Nisa, it says the people who you have bestowed your favor upon, who are the prophets, and they are the prophets, the very righteous people, the martyrs, and the pious people. So Surah An-Nisa essentially expands or clarifies what Surah Al-Fatiha is saying. Here I'm doing tafsir of the Quran with what? The Quran. I'm using the Quran to clarify what was made ambiguous in another part of the Quran. Does that make sense? Right. Another example is in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Adam alayhi salam after he ate from the tree, فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. That Adam alayhi salam received words from Allah that essentially taught him how to repent to Allah. Adam received words from Allah. This verse doesn't tell us what those words are. We don't know. Right? But in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Adam alayhi salam what he said. قَالَ رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Right? If you don't, Adam alayhi salam said, we have wronged ourselves, and if you don't have mercy on us and forgive us, we're going to be among the losers. All right? So Surah Al-A'raf tells us what Adam alayhi salam said, and Surah Al-Baqarah is now better understood because we use the Quran to understand the Quran. So again, Surah Al-Baqarah, it says that Adam alayhi salam received words that he said to repent without explaining or clarifying what those words are. In Surah Al-A'raf, it tells us what those words are. So we're using Surah Al-A'raf to do tafsir of Surah or a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. Does that make sense? So whenever you all want to better understand a verse in the Quran, the first question you need to ask, is there another part of the Quran that clarifies this verse? All right, that's step one. Any questions on that? Yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. Step 2 is if the best way to explain the Quran is with the Quran, what's the second best way to explain the Quran? Why is that? He was the Waqi Quran, right? His role was literally to relay the Quran. Everything the Prophet did and said is essentially a manifestation of what the Quran was. All right. So who better understands the Quran than the one it's being revealed to? Especially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna alayna jam'ahu wa Qur'ana. ثم إذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه. Allah is telling the Prophet, he is the one who's going to reveal the Quran to you, and he's going to clarify what it means to you. Right? So don't be hasty in trying to memorize it. You're going to get it, right? So if the Quran, we can't find a verse in the Quran that is explaining the Quran, the next step is to go and ask, is there a hadith, is there a statement of the Prophet ﷺ that clarifies what the verse is saying? So, for example, right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Those who believe and do righteous deeds, Allah is going to make a love for them. سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Allah is going to make a love for them. What does that mean? What does it mean to make a love for them? And you can explain that in a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, if Allah loves someone, he calls out to the heavens, he calls Jibreel and says, oh Jibreel, I love so-and-so, so love so-and-so. So Jibreel loves that person. And then Jibreel calls out to the inhabitants of the heavens and says, Allah has loved so-and-so, so love so-and-so. And everybody in the heavens begins to love that person. And there's a trickle-down effect until the hadith says it literally reaches the hearts of people, right? And so people will have a certain love for a person, even though they don't even really know them. Right? All they know is this kind of, I know that person's name, but I don't have a personal relationship with that person. I just feel this general love for this person, right? So here you have the hadith that's explaining the verse. Right. So that's one example. Another example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُم بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who believe and don't mix their belief with injustice, for them is safety and they are guided. Now, when the companions heard this verse, they said, Ya Rasulullah, who amongst us doesn't do injustice to themselves? In other words, the companions understood it as it's normally used in the Quran, that injustice tends to refer to sinning in general. So they're like, Ya Rasulullah, who amongst us doesn't sin? I mean, this verse is essentially dooming us all. So Allah, the Prophet ﷺ comes and says, you've misunderstood what the verse is saying. Rather, it is saying what the righteous man said, Inna shirka la zulmun azim, which is also a verse, right? That shirk is a great injustice, or is the greatest injustice, right? So essentially, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that the shirk or the injustice that's mentioned in that first verse is referring specifically to shirk and not to all sins, right? Now, you might be thinking, isn't this tafsir of Quran with Quran? The answer is no, because I don't think we can make that connection between the two verses. Just because Luqman said, Inna shirka la zulmun azim, that shirk is the greatest injustice, there's not enough of a connection with the previous verse, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ. They didn't mix their iman with injustice, because injustice is different levels, right? But the hadith comes and links it. So we know what the verse means because the Prophet ﷺ clarified to us what it means. Okay, so we go and we look at hadith. A lot of some of the main books of hadith will have a unit on tafsir. And there you'll find a lot of examples of how hadith clarifies Quran. Any questions on that? Okay. Step 3. All right. We can't find from the Prophet. Who's the next best source? Or what's the next best source to go to? Companions. Why is that?
We got it directly from the Prophet, so it's one.
Right? They got it directly from the Prophet. My question to you all is as follows. Why are the companions the best? What makes them the best?
Where there is right. Translation for the unaware of.
Okay. What makes them the best? What else?
Isn't there hadith that they're the best, and then the next generation is the best after that?
Sure, but that's not random. Like there's a reason why. I want to unlock that reason so that we can better emulate it.
Is it because
They
supported the Prophet? Oh, sure. Go ahead.
They were there when the Quran was being revealed, and they were there firsthand with the Prophet ﷺ. So they got both of, the Quran and the Sunnah firsthand.
For sure, right? Anyone else?
They became Muslim when there was nothing going for them other than
their sacrifices, right?
I mean, they took up like the actions, like the commands and the prohibitions. The majority of them, when they heard it, they just took it up, like even the adab and everything else as well.
Okay. So there are 3 things that made them the best. And you all are, mentioning them. 1, they saw the Prophet. Right? What I mean by saw the Prophet, I don't mean they just looked at him and somehow they became full of Iman. But rather they saw the actual practice of Islam. What we're doing here is great. It's fantastic. It's important. But seeing the scholars actually apply Islam in the real life context is even more important. It's even more important. So if your path is to become, a scholar of Islam, and that is an amazing path, right? At some point in time, you're going to want to shadow somebody who's been in that position for a while. Because what we're doing here is all theory. Just because you know the information does not necessarily mean you know how to apply it in the real world. You need a whole addition of training in that regard. And the best way to get that is to actually see somebody in action. From my own personal experience, because I had the opportunity of being mentored, right? Not just taught, mentored by, a seasoned scholar when I was in Jordan, where I would travel with him. I would go and visit people. I would go to condolences with him. I'd go to nikahs, marriages with him. We'd go to sittings of students of knowledge, people who, barely have any iman, from homes that don't even have a roof to homes that are, $20 million. And I saw how he interacted with everyone. When he gets phone calls and he's being asked a question, what information he dug up on the person in order to provide them with the answer. That's a whole different ballgame, right? I'm telling you the step by step here. But seeing this applied, that's a whole different level. Right? So again, what we're doing here is very important. But if your role is to actually be a community leader at this capacity, you're going to want to shadow someone. Maybe you can go to IOK and say you should create an alumni program where the students can shadow the teachers and whatnot. I'm serious, right? It's a whole different volume. So they saw the Prophet. They saw him. When a companion can imagine you are born in the second generation of Islam. You didn't see the Prophet, but you're seeing the companions. And you're watching this companion go and, they're performing salah in a certain way. Your assumption is that they're praying that way because what? That's how they saw the Prophet. They might not be the one who narrated the hadith about how to pray, but they saw the Prophet pray. That's why they're praying that way. And what's beautiful about that is, they did what they did, not because they learned it, but because they saw it. They learned it because they saw it, The danger for those who are outside of that is that a lot of people will make the assumption that this person is behaving in a random way. I'll give you an example. There was this guy, a zealous Muslim, the one about the beard. The beard is a very important type of guy. And so he's walking and he sees this guy praying like this. He's holding the reins of his horse. And the horse is moving, and this guy is moving, and he's doing ruku'ah and sujood, and he's struggling with the horse. The horse wants to go. This guy's trying to keep his horse. And he's praying like this. So this, mashallah, guy goes to him and says, "What are you doing, man? Your salah is invalid, and you're making a mockery out of salah and whatnot." And this guy just doesn't respond until he finishes. And then the guy who's holding the horse responds and says, "I was with the Prophet in 9 battles. I was with the Prophet in 9 battles." I mean, the guy who's criticizing him didn't even know he's a companion. And the companion is responding and saying, "I was with the Prophet in 9 battles." What is he really saying? Is he boasting about status? He's saying, "I saw the Prophet. I knew what he did. I know what is allowed and what's not allowed." He got that first-hand experience. He knows, based on what the Prophet has done, what he saw from the Prophet, that if you have something that is of monetary value that could be taken from you or could be damaged while you're doing salah, you can protect it while praying. He saw that from the Prophet, right? So that's a whole different ballgame. They saw the Prophet. Now, we can't see the Prophet, right? But what we can do is we can study his life. If you want to know the Quran, the best way of knowing the Quran is what? Knowing the life of the Prophet. Because he is a manifestation, a reflection of exactly what the Quran is saying. But even in our times today, we don't do a good job at. In fact, books of Sirah hasn't gotten enough attention over the centuries. It haven't. There's not that many good books of Sirah, which is unfortunate. But anyway, the more we study the Sirah in depth, in an accurate way, then, inshallah, the more we can see the Prophet. So that's good. Number 2, their language. The Quran that we read is a language they spoke normally. That was their regular speech. Just like how we're talking, this is our regular speech. Imagine the Quran being revealed in the way we speak, right? If you have parents who are immigrants, they will miss out on a lot of rhetoric in the English language, right? They'll miss out, they won't catch it. When somebody's making a slick joke, for example, that comes off in a serious way, but because we speak the language, we kind of get it. We get this is a joke, we get the person making fun of, right? We catch that because we speak the language, but your parents don't catch it because this isn't their language. They might understand what's being said, right? But they don't understand the rhetoric. I always get a kick out of people on social media who are trying to do advertisements and whatnot, but they're not, English isn't their first language, and they put like music that's very vulgar, and they have no idea what the song is saying, right? And they're kind of, the song is really out of place. Like I saw one person who's a realtor from the Middle East, right? And she's playing some a Tupac song, uncensored, or a Tupac or Eminem song, one of them, right? Uncensored, dropping the F-bombs. And like, she's showing a home. This is out of, this doesn't work, right? But she has no idea. Like, she didn't constantly say, oh yeah, I'm gonna put this vulgar song, you know, it's dropping the F-bomb, the N-word and everything. And it's not, she didn't do it consciously. She doesn't realize what's being said. Like, even though she speaks the language, you know, maybe. See what I mean here? They understood the language. Okay, well, we're not speaking that language, but can we learn that language? Yes. So the more time you study the Arabic language, the more access you'll have to the Quran. The companions, they spoke it, so they got it, right? When I say study the language, I don't mean you just study Nahu, and that's it. Nahu is a segment of the Arabic language. But anyway, it's a many-year process. So that's number two. Number three, the third thing that made them the best is their akhlaq, their manners. Now, some people from a certain part of the Muslim world, they get all offended when we say the Arabs are all about akhlaq, right? Like, we have akhlaq too. Anyway, when I presented this sometimes to certain crowds, they have like this rivalry with Arabs, right? And so they think that when we say the Arabs had manners, they think that, oh, well, we have manners too, right? That's not what we're saying here. The Arabs had manners in a certain way that the Quran came and highlighted, but then redirected in a positive way. The idea is the Quran is a heavily what book? The Quran focuses heavily on what topic? Kind of pointing to it. Manners, akhlaq. What portion of Islam is about akhlaq? If you were to give a percentage, I'd go higher. You know, if somebody were to split the Quran between, in fact, I would say the entirety of the Quran is about akhlaq. The entirety of Islam is about akhlaq, manners. Manners then are split into two types: manners with humanity, manners with Allah. Salah is manners with Allah. Zakah is manners with Allah. Fasting is manners with Allah. And I present it this way because you'll have like the humanists come and say, the Quran, it has like 200 verses about fiqh, and then everything else is about manners. And they present it in a way that actually downplays salah, the importance of salah and whatnot. No, it's all about manners, but you have to have manners with Allah. It's not just manners with humanity. Missing a salah, not praying it on time, is bad manners with Allah. Not giving your zakah is bad manners with Allah, because Allah is the one who gave that to you, right? It's like your father giving you money and saying, you know, here's some money, use it, but take $5 out of this and go buy food for the family. And then you're not going and buying that food for the family. It's just bad manners right there, right? So they had very, very good manners. Now, the Arabs in Jahiliyyah, their manners was a tool of survival, as I think we've spoken about before. It was a tool for survival. In order to survive, they needed to have akhlaq. They needed to be able to navigate the scarcity of the resources and keep each other alive. Akhlaq was the way to do that, right? And then number two, they had akhlaq for status reasons, because it was so rooted in the society. If you don't behave this way, people look down upon you. But if you do behave that way, people look up to you, right? So what the Quran did is highlighted those same manners, but then shifted the trajectory. These are manners for upholding justice and getting the paradise. So it matters. Now, we can study this, we can replicate this. Right? It's not impossible to have manners that are close to the level of the companions. So these are the three reasons that the companions were the best. And their ability to access the Quran was phenomenal, right? We can replicate all of these to an extent if we focus on them. I need to learn the life of the Prophet. I need to see him as he was. I need to have an image of how he would behave, what he would do. I need to learn language, and I need to focus on my akhlaq. So if we don't have a verse to explain the Quran, if we don't have a hadith to explain the Quran, we're going to look at what the companions said. Now, Shaykh Farhan, on page 53, in the first paragraph, he gives us 4 reasons why the companions are an authority when it comes to the Quran. So the first is that it was revealed to their nation. The second, they witnessed the revelation. Third, they understood what problems it was addressing. Right? And fourth, the Quran was revealed in their native tongue. So an example of the companions or a companion giving us clarity about a certain verse is the verse وَالسَّقْفِ الْمَرْفُوعِ, the beginning of Surah At-Tur, and the raised ceiling or the high ceiling. That's how you literally translate it. Okay, what's the high ceiling? Is it referring to this ceiling? What's it talking about? Ali radiallahu ta'ala an says that it's referring to the sky, right? And maybe the reason he's saying this is because the Arabs would use the word saqf to refer to the sky. And there's another verse that actually kind of gives some clarity there. وَجَعَلْنَا السَّمَاءَ سَقْفًا مَحْفُوظًا. We made the sky as a ceiling that protects the inhabitants of the earth. So that's an example of one. And you have many other examples. Now, from among the companions, there were those who were more senior when it comes to Quran itself. So the companions are all the best of the best, but within the companions group, there were the senior scholars. And within those senior scholars group, different companions were specialized in different aspects of the religion. So if you think of hadith, what companions come to your mind? Abu Hurairah, right? He's probably the senior most companion when it comes to hadith, or one of the senior most companion when it comes to hadith. But when it comes to fiqh, that's not the name that's going to be mentioned. When it comes to fiqh, it's Mu'adh ibn Jabal, for example, Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. These are like the senior scholars when it comes to the senior companion scholars when it comes to fiqh. Similarly, when it comes to hadith, tafsir, you have certain scholars that shine. And they include the 4 khulafa, so Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, right? And perhaps the senior most companion when it comes to tafsir is Ibn Abbas. In fact, I can confidently say that Ibn Abbas is seen as the most senior person when it comes to tafsir, most knowledgeable. And the Prophet ﷺ would make dua for him, saying, Allahumma faqihhu bid-din wa 'allimhu at-ta'wil. Well, Allah give him correct understanding of the religion and teach him the Quran. 'Allimhu at-ta'wil. And subhanAllah, Ibn Abbas is a senior scholar in fiqh, and he's also the senior most scholar in tafsir. Any questions on that? All right, let's take a 10-minute break, inshallah. We'll continue to come back. People are dead on energy today. It's killing me. Guess what? It's Mondays.
Pittsburgh.
No, I haven't. Thank you. All right, Bismillah. Step 4. Similar to step 3, but one generation later. And that is the generation of what's called the Tabi'in. tabi'i, the word literally means to follow. Tabi' means to follow something else, or something that's an extension of something else. So the second generation of Muslims are called tabi'in because they're essentially following that of the companions. All right. So in general, it's referring to the second generation. Now, if the companions are prominent because they saw the Prophet, then similarly, the tabi'in are prominent because they saw the people who saw the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? And while the quality obviously is not as pristine as that of the one who saw the Prophet, it's still incredibly high, right? And among the tabi'in are those who are prominent in the realm of tafsir. They include people like Qatada, like Mujahid, like Ikrimah. You'll hear these names a lot. You'll see these names a lot in books of tafsir. So I just tell them to you now. They're in the book, just to familiarize yourself with them. When you see these names in books of tafsir, understand who they are. They're from the second generation who learned directly from these senior companions. So I don't have the kind of the connections memorized quite well, but you'll have some of these names actually learned directly from Ibn Abbas. Right. Okay, and then step 5 is through the Arabic language. The Arabic language. All right. Now, what do we say about the competence of the companions? Why they understood the Quran so well? Because they knew the language, right? And the Quran is constantly saying this is the Arabic language. And it's coming to us in the Arabic language in a way لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so that you understand it, right? In other words, the Quran is literally saying, if you understand the Arabic language, you're going to do what? You're going to understand the Quran. So in theory, if you understand the Arabic language without knowing any of this, how well will you understand the Quran? I'm talking about the classical Arabic. I'm not talking about the way we speak Arabic today. Well, you're going to understand it pretty darn well. Are you going to understand 100%? No, because there are going to be certain things that require more insight, more context, right? If you take the Quran to the Arabs before Islam, they're going to understand most of it. But when we tell them, establish Salah, what do you mean Salah? Like, establish what exactly? Because it's referring to 5 daily prayers, which is a technical definition, right? When it talks about the certain events, like if you don't know about Uhud, the second half of Surah Ali Imran is going to be, okay, what's going on here? Like, I understand there's a battle, but I don't understand all the details here, even though I understand kind of general messages, right? So the Arabic language is incredibly important, and technically speaking, if you know this, you may not need these as much. Now, don't misunderstand me here, don't downplay. We want them all. In order to be proficient, you need to know them all. But this is incredibly important. So when I say step 5, I don't want us to think that, okay, knowing the Arabic language is really secondary to the process of understanding the Quran. No, it's primary. All right. In fact, if you were to ask me, what should you study more in the realm of tafsir? Should I study more about what the tabi'in said or the Arabic language? I'd say focus on the Arabic language. Not because this is unimportant, but because this gives you a lot more direct contact, right? And it gives you more insight in terms of what the tabi'in are saying. Okay, so the Arabic language. Now, when we say the Arabic language, what do we mean? We mean literally the Arabic language. We don't mean another language. We don't mean the theories of language and whatnot. We don't go into the realm of linguistics and the formulation of language. We mean how the Arabs were speaking back in the day, that's what we're studying. Where they got their words from, we could care less. We care about what they understood when they said those words. All right. Why do I say that? Because you'll find every now and then some person coming and saying, yeah, if you take this Arabic word and you trace it back to the mother tongue, the Syrianic or whatever, it actually means something else. I don't care what it means in the Syrianic. I care what it means in the Arabic language. And again, when I say what it means in the Arabic language, what I mean by that is what they meant by it when they spoke it. The study of the Arabic language is not a study of a methodology or a system. The study of the Arabic language is the attempt to understand the way they understood it. That's what I'm doing. So it's not for us to impose our theories and our contemporary research on what they meant by the Arabic language. Right? Does that make sense? So if I want to study the word zakat from an Arabic, from the Arabic language, I want to study the word zakat, I'm not going to look at the mother tongue of the Arabic language, how they use zakat, if there's any similarities there, I can care less about it. What I'm going to study is the Arab poets, have they ever used the word zakat? If they did, what do they mean by it? That's what I'm studying. All right. Now, if you listen to Arabic today, it doesn't sound anything like Arabic back then. And if you were to take pre-Islamic Arabic poetry that preceded the Quran, and you gave it to the average Arab today, I'm talking about from the Arab world, they have no idea what it's saying. None whatsoever. Is it the same words? Yeah, I get the words. I just don't get what this means. All right. So how do we know? Some non-Muslim would come to us today. You are saying that this word is to be understood this way because that's how it's defined. How do I know that somewhere between the time of the Prophet and now, these words weren't redefined? Is that a valid question? Is that a fair question? It is a fair question because that's exactly what we tell the Christians and the Jews. This is what the Quran criticizes them with. يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوَاضِعِ. They change the meaning of words after it's been made clear to them. So you'll find that, for example, you'll find translations that Muslims will come and say, that's actually referring to the Prophet, peace be upon him. But the way they translate it is more of the meaning, right? And not the actual, in terms of, they play around with the wording pretty much, right? To where it no longer means what it originally meant. That's one of the ways they corrupt the book. So is it possible that that happened over the past 1400 years? I mean, it's a valid question. So how do we know for sure that we are understanding these words and we are defining them the way they were understood back in the day? And the answer is poetry. There are more than 10, but there are 10 primary sonnets that are still with us today, that were wrote before the time of the Prophet. When I say before the time of the Prophet, I mean shortly before the coming of the Prophet. 10. They're called Al-Ashr al-Mu'allaqat, the 10 that were hung up on the Kaaba. These are sonnets that the Arabs found so powerful and so articulate and eloquent that they literally hung them up on the Kaaba. And from these 10 sonnets, again, they're not only 10 sonnets, but the idea is from these sonnets, we have enough of a vocabulary to where we can begin to understand how the Arabs use the words that you find in the Quran in their everyday life. So Arabic poetry is incredibly important. That's why it remained a field of study in the broader Islamic corpus, because it helps us better understand the Arabic language. Right? And not only does it help us understand the Arabic language, it helps us understand the context in which the Quran is being revealed. So what you'll find in all 10 of these sonnets is that the concept of courage and generosity are very prominent in them, because it was extremely important to have these qualities in that culture. It was a sign of status. Remember what I said about manners? the Arabs acquire, they behave with manners, one, to survive, and two, for prestige. So you constantly see that in the poetry, right? Another very common theme is love, right? And this is where they would combine this is where they would show their courage and their generosity. Yeah, I love this girl and I had a crush on her, and but she was guarded by her tribe, and I had to find my way in and sneak her out. And if I were to be caught, they would kill me. And what's he really saying? Say, I'm a courageous person. That's what he's saying, right? The Quran, Islam comes and says, yeah, keep that courage, but use it somewhere else, right? So through the poetry, we retain and preserve the Arabic language as a whole. Right? So that's how we know. Now, there might be cases where a verse can be understood in a few different ways. And in all those different ways, it falls within the scope of the proper Arabic. At that point, how do we understand it, right? And the answer is, if each of those meanings does not contradict the other, meaning you can understand them in separate ways, that doesn't contradict, we explain the Quran using all of it, right? We stick to the generality. But if there is contradiction, then here we have to choose which one is more accurate, right? But if it's non-contradictory, we accept them all and we do our best to understand the Quran in its general sense. But if there is contradiction, then remember this analogy. You have different lanes, right? All of them are correct, meaning they all fall within the methodology. However, there are different pathways of asserting that. You have Imam Malik saying, if any person is brought to me having interpreted the Quran while he is ignorant of Arabic, I will make an example of him. Mujahid said, it is impermissible for anyone who believes in Allah on the last day to speak concerning the book of Allah if he is not knowledgeable of the dialects of the Arabs. Right. So this is serious stuff. And you have people, Arabs today, coming saying, I have to read the Quran myself. Congratulations. Right? Don't get ahead of yourself. Okay, so in general, these are the 5 steps of understanding the Quran. You start with the Quran. You use the Quran to interpret another verse of the Quran. You use Hadith. That's step 2, companions, tabi'een, and in the Arabic language. Any questions on that?
You were saying, when you're saying you choosing the different ways, you're saying with the different tafsirs are contradictory. You're saying like when there's contradictions, you meant within different tafsirs. Is that what you?
Sure, within different tafsirs or within different opinions among the scholars.
Mm-hmm. You didn't mean like between like steps 2 or 3 or 4.
No.
You meant
within the literature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so page 55, Tafsir of the Quran. Actually, this is step 6, Tafsir of the Quran through personal interpretation. You exhaust all of these, you can't find a clear answer. You're left with what? You're left with personal interpretation. You're left with a personal interpretation. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Not anybody can personally interpret the Quran, right? They need skills. As the next page clarifies, the criteria that needs to be met in order for a person to truly be a mufassir. All right. But you will find many cases where, we don't have a conclusive answer from the previous 5 steps. So we need to come to a conclusion, right? How do we do that? And the answer is you go through the process of ijtihad. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, he said, Mu'adh, how will you answer questions. He says, I will answer based on what the Quran says. And then the Prophet said, if you don't find in the Quran, Mu'adh said, I will answer based on what I heard you say, hadith. If you don't remember me saying anything about it, Mu'adh said, I will do my best to come to the right conclusion. I do my own ijtihad. And so the Prophet affirmed that methodology and said, may Allah, give you tawfiq. So that's correct. So the Prophet is verifying that at some time we need to do personal interpretation. All right. Now this is a whole semester of content right here. What does that mean? How do you go about doing it? What is valid? What is invalid? What about circumstances where knowledge is very limited, but you have to make a decision, right? How do you navigate that? How do you critique somebody who made their own personal interpretation? Like you see, Sheikh so-and-so does their own personal interpretation, and others go after him. How dare you? You're, and whatnot, and all this stuff. So that's a whole topic itself. But what I will comment on here is the following. The Quran, in the beginning of Surah Al Imran, says that there are verses that are muhkam, and there are verses that are mutashabih. There are verses that are muhkam, and others that are mutashabih. A muhkam verse is a conclusive verse. It's self-defined. It's clear. Or I could use the word unequivocal. Or I could use the word unambiguous. In other words, there's only one opinion about it. There's no difference of opinion about what this verse means or what it's saying. Mutashabih is the opposite. It is equivocal. Equivocal, by the way, means it's ambiguous, right? There are more than one way of understanding it. It's ambiguous. Right? There's more than one way of understanding it. Now, this is pretty straightforward. But what the verse is saying in Surah Al Imran is the following. These, the muhkamat, the conclusive verses, are the essence of the Quran. Hunna ummul kitab. They form the foundation of the religion. So when we say aqimus salah, establish salah, there's no two opinions about it. Now, salah is what in the court in terms of Islam? It is a pillar of Islam. When Allah says La ilaha illallah, there's no two opinions about it. These things are the foundation of the religion. Ummul kitab. The mutashabih don't form the foundation. If the Quran is presenting an issue in a way that can be that's ambiguous, no, first and foremost, it is a secondary issue. Had it been foundational to our religion, Allah would have made it clear. Does that make sense? All right. Now, what is the problem? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who have a spiritual disease, they have problems within. And those who have their own agenda, meaning they want the religion to be reinterpreted, redesigned. The reformers, as they call them, we're here to reform Islam to fit the modern context and whatnot. What do? They essentially switch the equation. They make the mutashabih verses that are ambiguous and present them in a way as though they are conclusive. Whereas these, they make it as though it is secondary and, ambiguous. They flip the equation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what is ambiguous? You understand it in light of the unambiguous. You understand this in light of this. This is the foundation, this is the branch. this branch dies if it's not connected to its trunk. Right? This is the normal way of doing it. So if there is something in the Quran that doesn't seem that it's confusing in your mind, take it back to what is not confusing and understand it in light of that. All right. So, can I give you an example here? Let me think of one. Let's say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's a good example. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to give zakat, right? To give charity. Now, we also know that you have a responsibility towards yourself. You have to take care of yourself, your family, etc. If for whatever reason somebody understands giving charity to mean like literally everything, and that's going to result in the person being unable to fulfill their responsibilities, how are we going to reconcile these two? Well, what is the muhkam? You have to take care of yourself. What is the ambiguous? How much you need to give? Following along? Okay, so how do I now reconcile this? Well, I reconcile this by taking this, how much do I give, and understanding it in light of what I'm supposed to do, the foundation. That is, I need to take care of myself. So at least from here, we can understand what? How much I give should not prevent me from taking care of myself and those around me, all right? This is the formula. Other people will flip it. And if you see people doing that, that's a big problem. But you'll be able to catch on to that more, the more you learn. When you learn more fiqh, when you learn more usul and whatnot. But I thought I'd give a short kind of presentation to this. We understand the ambiguous by taking it back to the unambiguous, right? Remember these two. When we talk about personal interpretation, the Arabic language, we have to understand it in light of what is solid and concrete. Is that clear?
Can you explain on page 55 where it says something? Prophet for himself, whoever says anything about the Quran with his own personal opinion and his right is
Just still mistaken. Whoever says anything about the Quran with his own personal opinion should prepare his seat in the fire. Okay, still mistaken. So neither of those hadith are authentic as far as I'm aware. But how do we understand it? The first one, the hadith is whoever intentionally lies about something I said, or lies saying that the Prophet said something that he didn't, then they should prepare their seat in the fire. Right? That's the authentic hadith. The second one, it is pretty much saying, even if you speak about the Quran without any training whatsoever, no background information, you didn't hear it from a scholar, you just kind of, I think this is what the Quran means. Even if you just accidentally get it right, the fact that you ignored the etiquettes of approaching the Quran makes it as though you're wrong. Right? So the sin comes from ignoring and refusing to follow the guidelines, not so much the answer. So some of the criteria, some of the things you need to know in order to properly provide tafsir of the Arabic language and the vocabulary, Arabic grammar, morphology, which is sarf, word structure and etymology, ishtiqaq, rhetoric, which is balagha, eloquence, also balagha. And you have a bunch of these other things. Qira'at, I don't really think that's necessary. Asbab al-nuzul, nasikh, mansukh, we went over both. You need to know hadith, you need to know ulum al-Quran, which is going over that divine endowment is pretty much tawfiq. Allah's giving you tawfiq to do this. But notice how Arabic heavy this is. I mean, literally the first 7 are about the Arabic language. So. All right. Famous works of tafsir, page 56. You have a bunch of names of books here. Now, to simplify our lives, a lot of books in our literature are just named after the author, which makes it a lot easier because if you look at the actual names of these books, it's pretty long, like Jami' al-Bayan, Wat-Ta'wil, Ayah al-Quran and stuff like that, Tafsir al-Quran al-Azim, Tafsir al-Quran al-Kareem. And so it just makes it easier to memorize the names of these books of tafsir just by the name of the author. So Tafsir Ibn Jarir, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Tafsir al-Qurtubi, etc. Now, when it comes to the works of tafsir, usually the author has a particular approach that they are focusing on. So remember, how you analyze the Quran and what aspects of the Quran you focus on can differ. There are a few different things. And so what you'll find is that most books of tafsir focus on a certain angle or certain approach. Like, what are they trying to extract from the Quran, or which of these steps are they focusing on when they do tafsir? So you'll have books of tafsir that are completely around doing tafsir of the Quran with the Quran, like Tafsir Adwa al-Bayan. If it's not in the book, don't worry about it. But if you want to write it for your own reference, that's fine. So Tafsir Adwa al-Bayan by Shanqiti is a book that looks at the Quran through the Quran. So if you ever want to see how the Quran explains itself, you go to that book. Step 2, tafsir using hadith, or what's more generally called an athar, narrations. The most prominent is Tafsir Ibn Kathir. And Tafsir Ibn Kathir is essentially a summary, a condensed version of Tafsir al-Qurtubi. So Ibn Kathir just pretty much summarized Qurtubi. Qurtubi is like 20 volumes. Tafsir Ibn Kathir is like 8 or 9 volumes. One book that focuses on steps 3 and 4 is Tafsir Ibn Jawzi. Again, not in the book. And if it's not in the book, I'm not going to ask you about it. Like, if you that's questions will be only from the book, with the exception of nature. Before I forget, there's only one thing I will ask you about that's outside of this book, and that is the subject matter about nature. Remember that? Mm-hmm. So the people online, the people who don't attend live, who watch the recordings, being recorded. You heard? Yeah, it's recording. Right? So the people who don't watch live, they watch the recordings. If you didn't get the lectures about subject matter on nature, you have to go back, or you're going to get those questions wrong. I will ask about it, because I think it's incredibly important. Anyway, so Tafsir Ibn Jawzi really focuses on step 2 and 3. A book that focuses on step 5, the Arabic language, Al-Kashaf, probably the most famous work when it comes to just focusing on the Arabic language and the Quran. Now, more contemporary, more recent writings on tafsir have tended to focus on contemplating the verses. They tend to be written in a less academic style and focused more on the average audience, allowing it to be accessible by the average Muslim, meaning when I say average Muslim, I mean a Muslim who hasn't really dove into the sciences of Islam. That includes Tafsir al-Sa'di, which was written less than 100 years ago. And I wouldn't even call it tafsir, tafsir of what's his name? Sayyid Qutb, in the shade of the Quran. This isn't classical tafsir. This is really just contemplating the verses, which is beneficial.
Could you say more on the site? Because I'm reading one of his books, and then I heard online that some of you like don't read his stuff, and so could you just say more on the site?
So Sayyid Qutb was born in Egypt, I think in like 1920s. And he's being raised in a time where Islam pretty much was nothing more than a name pretty much in all of the Muslim world, unfortunately. And so he's being raised a certain way where there's a lot of superstition, there's a lot of Western ideologies or non-Western ideologies coming in, like Marxism and capitalism and all these stuff. So Muslims have no idea where they are. They're just completely ill-equipped to deal with this. You also have colonialism, which is in kind of its full form. So he's being raised in this context, and from what I've heard, he was like a communist for a good portion of his life, and then he got ill and was allowed access to America for medical purposes. And while he was in the hospital, a prominent figure in Egypt by the name of Hassan al-Banna was assassinated. So Hassan al-Banna is one of the most important figures in Egypt for reviving or beginning the revival of Islam in that society, and even beyond it really spread. So when he was assassinated, and the news is going around in America, and Sayyid Qutb is in his hospital watching the TV, and he's hearing the celebrations of the people around him, that triggered him. Like, that didn't sit well with him, because he saw firsthand that these people hate us, as we see today, right? I mean, and when I say these people, I don't mean the average American, the average Western. I'm talking about the politicians, the people in power. They cannot stand Islam. They are still traumatized by what happened 1400 years ago. It's kind of bizarre, but even Jordan Peterson, like, he talks about this, like, yeah, I mean, we were traumatized by what the Muslims did. Traumatized, man. It's been 1400 years. Get over yourself. But anyway, that didn't rub well with Sayyid Qutb, and he realized, wait a minute, man. I mean, these people we're trying to emulate cannot stand us. And that begins his journey, if you want to call it, back to Islam, or his journey within Islam. And he begins to learn why some shuyukh will say, don't read this guy, because, I mean, if you look at his intellectual trajectory, I mean, he really doesn't have a foundation in Islamic sciences at all. He doesn't have the classical upbringing of Islamic scholasticism. So, I mean, what kind of information is he going to provide us if he doesn't have that? And don't forget that there's still an Azhar there. The Azhar didn't disappear. You still had very powerful scholars coming out of an Azhar. Anyway, so Sayyid Qutb adopts the Muslim Brotherhood ideology and becomes a very prominent figure there. And he starts promoting it. He becomes part of the movement of reviving Islam in Egypt and in pretty much the Middle East in general. And tension rises between the Brotherhood and the politicians, and he gets imprisoned. And while he's in prison, he writes this book, The Shade of the Quran. Right. Now, when you read the book, it's not really academic in its approach, which is fine. It's more about reflecting on the verses itself, which is important. when scholars say, don't read this person, it's going to come from one of two places. Either it's going to come from a sectarian mindset. This guy is brotherhood, and we see the brotherhood as, misguided. That's nonsense, right? Whether you agree or disagree with the brotherhood ideology, to say that they're misguided and they're people of misguidance and they're spreading misguidance is just nonsense. But the other reason would be that his background does not reflect somebody who has the skills to explain the Quran, put it that way. But I don't discourage anyone from reading it. But what I like to do with any book is let them understand the way it's being written, so that they take the information that's meant to be taken. Because if you're entering this book thinking it's just like another book of tafsir, it's not another book of tafsir. There's a certain approach. All right. Did I answer your question? Thank you.
I always hear a lot about tafsir al-Munir. Do you know why it's not?
I'm not familiar with Tafsir al-Munir. But again, a lot of the more contemporary books of tafsir tend to be either a reflection, how to reflect on the Quran, or it tends to be just summarizing previous information in a way that's more accessible to the masses. Right. So I don't know, I'm not familiar with Tafsir al-Munir, even though I've heard of it, but I haven't dove into it. Now, one more thing I'll add. In general, when scholars write books about a certain field, like tafsir or hadith or whatever, they write it in a way that is like an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia style. So when you go to Ibn Kathir, he is trying to provide you with the explanation of the Quran through step 2 and 3, right? So, but he's doing it in a way that's like an encyclopedia. He wants his book to be the only resource you need to go back to get all the information you need about step 2 and 3. So you don't have to go anywhere else. Therefore, Ibn Kathir will include hadith that are unauthentic, that are not authentic, that are weak, not because he didn't catch the fact that it's weak. No, he says this is a weak hadith, but he includes it there just so that these hadith, some have used to explain this verse, but it's weak. You see what I'm saying here? So you have one resource that provides you all the information you need about a verse in regards to what hadith have been discussed about this verse and what companions said about this verse. Does that make sense? Okay, it's an encyclopedia. Same thing with books of history. When they write history, back in the day they would do it by year. This year, these events happened. The author isn't saying all of these events are authentic. He's leaving it to the student to determine what is authentic and what is not. What the author is doing is gathering all the information that has some amount of credibility so that you have it all in one place and then you can continue your studies from there. Right? I want to make this point very clear. Just because Ibn Kathir includes a hadith in his book Tafsir does not automatically mean it is an authentic hadith. Right? Sometimes he includes weak hadith so that these hadith that have been used to interpret the verse are actually weak. Right? And this is very important because one lady, speaking about Egypt, from Egypt, comes and says, yeah, all the mufassirin, all the scholars of fiqh or tafsir say that the Prophet ﷺ accidentally walked on Zainab binti Jahsh while she was naked and fell in love with her and, pretty much told Zayd to divorce Zainab because he wanted to marry her. These are in the books of tafsir. Look at this buffoon. Because I know exactly what's happening. Yeah, they're in the books of hadith, books of tafsir. But if you look at what the authors say, they include it to tell you this is a fabrication. And anybody who believes this, wallahi, I read it with my own 2 eyes. Anybody who believes that this actually happened is a kafir. To bring the Prophet down to this level is an act of kufr. And this lady's going about saying, yeah, all all the books of tafsir say this, right? So she's not 100% lying because it's there, but she is lying in the sense that she's not providing this additional information. The scholars included it so that you know this is fabricated.
Would you also say that's why some tafsirs have like disobedience in them, like, even if they're like completely wrong, it's like kind of for the academic, it's like repeated.
So Ibn Kathir, I mean, in the beginning, in the introduction of his book, he talks about Isra'iliyat, what's his methodology in this regard. Isra'iliyat, the general consensus on this is that if the Quran says that which contradicts an Israeli, then we reject the Israeli. By the way, Isra'iliyat are the stories that have come to us through the traditions of the people of the book, whether from their scripture itself or from their tradition, right? So if what they are saying contradicts something that the Quran is saying, then we reject what the people of the book are saying. And if the Quran says the same thing that the people of the book are saying, we accept it, obviously, right? But if the Quran doesn't say anything about what the people of the book are saying, then here, this is where we can discuss whether we include it or not. To what extent do we include it, right? That's one. Number two, Ibn Kathir, if he sees that the masses of the Muslims have accepted a story from the Isra'iliyat, he will present it to show whether it's right or wrong. So there's another point. When scholars wrote their books, they wrote it in conversation with their times. And I can't emphasize this enough, because the people today who go back to these books of Aqidah from 700 years ago and think that the whole purpose of Islam, their function as shuyukh, is to assert these Aqidahs in our times today, they are lost, right? They are lost. Not because the content that they are presenting is wrong. They completely miss the point of these books. They are having conversations with the questions of their time. And taking that and just imposing on us today, thinking that you are a wali of Allah because you are, continuing the tradition, you completely miss the point. If somebody were to write a book of Aqidah today, it's not going to talk about all of the same issues that was spoken about before. It's going to talk about liberalism. It's going to talk about feminism. It's going to talk about red pill movement. It's going to talk about capitalism. Because these are the questions of Aqidah that affect us today. Right? So when Ibn Taymiyyah was writing his books, he was in conversation with the people of his time. Right? He wasn't, in his mind, he's not writing a book that's meant to be the end-all, be-all about Aqidah in all times and all places. That's all he's doing. All right. Now, how to approach the Quran? You can read that yourself. I think I've given you the bits and pieces that are mentioned in this last chapter. All right. Wallahu ta'ala alam. With that, we conclude the book. When it comes to, this is the last class before the final, right? So we have 2 weeks off and then the final. So your final will be in the same format as the midterm. It'll be multiple choice. Again, I'm not going to make the multiple choice easy. So I'll try and hope you learn from the first exam, which you all didn't do too bad. And the average was about an 80. So it'll be in the same format. It will be, where did we stop the midterm? It was in the preservation of the Quran. Include all of the preservation of the Quran, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think so? One of the tricks? I was a student before, man. I know all the tricks. All right, so we'll start with subject matter, page 21 till the end of the book. And remember, don't ignore what I mentioned about nature and the study in the subject matter. If you don't have it, get it from someone. What is it? You were in what? I don't remember.
I can tell you the date. It was on the fourth, November 4th.
Yes.
I had a general question just about understanding the Quran and approaching it. So you said earlier that the best way to really like get a good understanding of the Quran is to become very proficient with understanding Arabic. When it comes to approaching the tafsir, given the fact that like Ibn Kathir is encyclopedic, are these like to be approached and just read from front to cover? Do we just look at them when we have a verse that we need help with? Do we always visit the tafsir whenever we're going over verses? Like, what's a good way to approach?
Either is good.
Yeah.
I would say if you're earlier in your studies, you should go cover to cover.
Okay.
But later on, when time is less and you're starting to focus in on deeper questions, you probably just use them as a reference point for particular verses of conversations.
And is there any one that you would recommend out of the different options, one that you prefer?
I think Ibn Kathir is the best book of tafsir. Not the best in the sense that he's the most knowledgeable. I think it's the best in terms of the authenticity of the information, the quality of information, and the accessibility of the information. Now remember, Ibn Kathir is a summary of Al-Qurtubi. So Al-Qurtubi is a senior book in comparison to Ibn Kathir. But Al-Qurtubi didn't go into a lot of nitty-gritty details that right now you probably don't need. Okay. So maybe later on, you'll start diving into Al-Qurtubi if you need more information about deeper questions. But Ibn Kathir is a very good starting point.
Is there like a book on Aqidah that you would recommend that's like that addresses topics that are relevant to today?
Not a book, but our brothers and sisters in the UK have done some good work. Sapiens Institute.
Okay.
They do a lot of good work about Western ideologies, but it's very philosophical. So, prepare for some dry conversation, so to speak.
Is there one like I guess where could I go for something that's more like applicable to like, versus just like theories and concepts and beliefs,
Theories, concepts, and beliefs.
Yeah, I know that's what Aqidah is, but I feel like sometimes when I read or learn about Aqidah, it's just like, okay, yeah, Tawheed, one God, like the concept, but how do you apply that?
Hold on one second, Khadija. What game are you playing? Brawl Stars, huh?
Yeah.
That's outdated, man.
At the classes.
Well, you were playing before that.
No, I was playing at the lunchtime.
All right. Stay with us. I think that's a great question, definitely needed. More applicable. I don't know, nothing, I'm not drawing anything, but I would still recommend going to Sapiens Institute. I haven't gone through them myself, so maybe there is applicability in those conversations. So check them out anyway and see if that's what you're looking for.
I have like short 5 or 10 minute versions that are pretty approachable, and then longer ones that are maybe that's
Sure. So just go to their page and just check it out, see what you can find.
Inshallah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Would you say, so like tafsir is kind of like other parts of Islamic studies where you want to be like careful studying teacher. If you don't understand kind of like the context and the background and all this kind of stuff, and like a misunderstanding, like taking something that you find in the tafsir book, like, oh, well, this is what they said.
Well, 100%, right? You want a balance between reading and hearing from scholars, right? Also, I mean, if you have the opportunity of actually seeing the scholar in action, living life, it's very important as well. I was once with one of my teachers, and we were out in the wilderness, and we wanted to make a campfire. And so we're trying to collect wood. So my teacher goes and he goes on a tree and he says, Ya Razzaq, and he finds all these twigs and these branches, right? And Allah is always telling us in the Quran, He is the Razzaq, He is the Razzaq, He is the Razzaq, right? You can define it, you can tell what the scholar said, but seeing that name in real life in a way that you probably would never see it before is a whole different ballgame. Like never once did I connect the fact that there's wood on the floor that's actually rizq. I mean, how many times do you just walk by these twigs and oh, this is so annoying? You see what I mean? So if you want to connect with the Quran, it's partially this and more so living life. And then using this to connect what it's saying to life itself. Because if you're not connecting it to life, then what's the point? What's the point? So again, you have to have that scholarship in your life. Anything else? Yeah.
There's this guy online on YouTube. His name's Dr. Kabir Ali.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he quotes some tafsir pretty often. It's I guess the more contemporary one. The name's not coming to me right now. And then I asked somebody else not to. He said not to read that tafsir. Are you familiar with the contemporary one?
I don't know. But Shabir Ali is very knowledgeable when it comes to comparative religion. Has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to Islam. To be very blunt, the guy has no criteria when it comes to the actual hard Islamic science. It's none whatsoever. And some of the things he said about tafsir and whatnot are just laughable, utterly laughable. So take from his comparative religion discussions. Don't take what he says about Islam. Right? Without due respect to him, most respect to him. Yes. No, it'll just be the final. Yeah. All right. If it's online, then how much you're gonna take it? I know, I'll figure it out.
Is it going to be the same thing with the Google form or physical?
Yeah. The whole point of a Google form is that I don't have to correct it, corrects it for me, right?
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Would be like maybe like 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, caffeine was more. If you walk by one, the gold one and the blue one. And then one normal one, and I do the big size of the. So it's like kind of like.
And then I just don't grab this flavor things.
No, like, I think it's okay to drink the morning if you don't do 2 shots that are both caffeinated. That's kind of, if you do 2 shots that are caffeinated, then it's,
What if I just do 1 shot?
you could do it, but it's very low, it'll give you like this.
Okay, but if it's like really strong, like you add water to it, too.
Actually, yeah,
Okay.
that would probably be,
So this,
yes, and you probably see the bigger button, if you see how there's 2 buttons and there's one with the small head. And then you can water it down,
where does this go?
then you lift out, open the metal and bar. And you just drop it in
Chop it.
with the other. The.
Oh,
And then. You just might just hold it.
something like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the, yeah.
Thank you.
But I think with the main point, I think very, the number of.
I wanted to take, get them in a back part and.
Too long. Just like pushing it in there.
Yeah.
I mean, take.
Yeah. So. I definitely need it. Okay, I'm going to do it. I've prepped for that auto. Currently 0. Zero on that one. I'm trying to. I did a little bit.
I was waiting for some blessed brother to.
I have like take pictures and send it to you. You can, that's all I have.
I'm literally using the exact same one before. And I just added a few things to it. So that's all I'm doing. I'm putting the reading. Speed and result. So.
That is made by.
Oh, okay.
I was like.
I don't know, 43 volume.
Whoever I did myself.
And what called, maybe that would be.
But this time you don't get one that is. Are you gonna buy them?
I would buy the blood.
What I assume that you know.
I was thinking for this.
Maybe one of them and something.
But I'm curious. I haven't,
So.
Good idea.
Put the price on.
Where was she born?
Everything from the old.
That's why I don't think it was so.
Whatever from the dog. Here, then I had 6, because I already had up to 35. I had to do this.
So you know, you didn't put the password, description of the subtitle or it could be a.
It's.
Yeah, because he wasn't covering,
Yeah.
he wasn't covering it, but I
Okay, you
added
didn't
it.
sign off.
Yeah, so, then, in case of the dog, nothing, judging, there was so much, I said, but review the dog. Like, jump up from the balloons calling.
Yeah, I
remember.
Yeah.
Who's your? Let's do that. What do you think, how much detail do you think you should know?
I question actually, he just said, I want the general info, and it would be.
This is the one with
You-
29%.
I was just like, didn't, Malik ibn Anas, and, Aisha, Radhiyallahu anha.
Yes, I just put the pieces the first like general info and then numbers and then slide and then I didn't want to keep. So I messaged it.
So that's what
I think I might delete 1 or 2 of these. But that's all for now. And then
Yeah.
I'll do a review like.
And these were listed on his, slide.
Here, like, it was part of like the these narrators, right? On the notes up.
What, I could have sworn I looked and I didn't see it.
Look, you're working at these notes. And then you just go to.
I must not have a note right here.
I think it's more from the book, it's really technical.
Um. People, and then it's great to be good in English, and then. And that could be basic linguistics, more less. And.
I think I need to memorize all of the terms, but I don't know.
And yet, one is really.
And we have to double it up on that.
Yep.
Got it, 50%, huh?
Yep. Not too bad. I don't know.
I think that is like all the terminology and anything that was the list. Yeah, all the biggest part was, said that the word really means, like. Somebody is one, somebody. She can hear that they're easily. Often in one. Yes, that's what the word is, and then taking the word for me, it also means like, you know, what often, maybe people have to, and they just do, think about it. Not that you're unaware, but it's that you take it to the extremes, what you like, it's not, you just, you don't, what, and that way you're, it becomes like playing up with sort of being like, you become a table of units that. One of the, okay, how do I get to the drink? But that was yeah, I don't know. You said what that would be wrong. HD, how do you mean? But one of the reasons, name of the song.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Open up your Arabic books. Go to page 165. This is family 6. Those of you online, I'm hoping you have your books. I'll try to get the screen connected. This is family 6. The verb that you're given as an example is ta'awana, upon the pattern of tafa'ala. 166. Right?
Yeah.
What do you have? Taqabala. Yeah. Okay, so you guys have taqabala in your book. What do you have?
Yours.
You'll learn all of them. It's the same difference. But as you remember, I said that the last one we did was family 5, right? And I said family 5 is essentially family 2 with an extra ta. So it's allama, family 2, family 5, ta'allama, right? And right, so that we can look at family 6, right? And if you guys have taqabala, family 3 is qabala, and family 6 is taqabala. Make sense? Okay. Give it a few minutes, practice it, look at it, and then if you feel like you get it down, then go down to drill 5 and put some of those words or those letters on that pattern of family 6 and try to practice it.
You have mercy in your heart.
I don't know, that one's I don't like.
You don't have
I mean, I do, but that one's not one I've generally marked wrong.
like
Like
might
that.
get more strict as we go.
I do, but and I glanced over your test. There weren't that many. If there were any, I didn't even catch them. But like the only
There shouldn't be any.
the talent. I think.
Yeah, this would be. Print it out.
One more time. تتابع. For where? Sorry,
The bottom one.
this one?
The bottom. لا تتعامل.
Oh, okay. This one. So yeah, the verb is تتابع يتتابع. So then يتتابع. So it would be لا تتتابع for the مضارع. لا تتتابع.
What does that mean? Don't stutter.
تابع means to follow or to continue. But all right, Bismillah. Let's go. Yeah, أميرة تخاصم.
تخاصمون يتخاصمون تخاصما فهو متخاصم تخاصم لا تتخاصم تتخاصم.
عيسى تقاسم.
تقاسم يتقاسم تقاسم يتقاسم تقاسما فهو متقاسم قسم يتقاسم تقاسما فهو متقاسم تقاسم لا تتقاسم متقاسم.
Good. سعد تظاهر. متظاهر. نعم. Grant تناصر.
Which one?
تناصر. It's the third.
Also Nasara.
Yeah. So تناصر.
تناصر يتناصر تناصرا فهو متناصر تنوصر يتناصر تناصرا فهو متناصر تناصر لا
تتناصر.
لا تتناصر.
No, that was three. لا تتناصر.
تتناصر.
No. لا تتناصر.
Okay, لا تتناصر. Okay. متناصرون.
Good. سلمى تنازع. يتنازع. يتنازع. Good. Let's do Rahman تقابل. Good. طيب, I save this one for you. تتابع.
تتابع يتتابع تتابعا فهو متتابع. تتوعب
You switch the last two letters.
تتوبع يتتابع تتابعا فهو متتابع. تتابع لا تتتابع متتابع.
Good. Go back to where we left off, page 26, I think. We had done drill 5, correct? Yes, maybe so.
Yeah, we did that fine.
Okay, so we're on drill 6. Simple, translate the following af'al with their attached pronouns. Be sure to specify number and gender. Grant, do number 1.
سمعتها. I heard her.
Yeah, I heard her. Number 2, DJ.
We heard him or it.
Yeah, now the first one and the second one technically, you can translate the ha and the hu as it or her and him. So grant sami'tuha, I heard her, or technically I heard it, and whatever it is feminine, right? And sami'nahu, the one DJ did, I heard him or I heard it. Three, Selma.
They were,
How many is they?
I'm sorry, it's you two.
No, it's not you two. It is they, but it's you got to be more specific in number. Sami'akum.
So they all.
It's not they all. طيب?
Those two heard, you all.
Yeah, those two or them two heard all of you. Make sense, Salma? Them two or those two heard all of you. That was three, right? Four, Muhammad Mardini.
They all heard you.
They all heard you, and they all over here is feminine. Good, the feminine plural, right? They all feminine plural heard you. Number 5, Bayan.
سمعتماني. You both heard me.
You both heard me. You both heard me. Michelle, 6.
سمعتي. You feminine heard you.
No, try that again.
You feminine heard.
No, it's not you feminine. Sami'at.
She heard you.
Yeah, she heard you. She heard you feminine. She heard you. Yeah, she heard you feminine. Rama. 7.
سمعتنا. You heard us.
You heard us. Maryam Khidr, 8.
سمعوهم. They heard them.
They heard them. Malik, 9.
They heard
Read the Arabic.
you all.
Read the Arabic.
Oh, سمعتكم.
سمعتكم. Go ahead, translate it.
She heard all of you.
She. Abdul Karim. DJ.
They both heard you all. They both heard you all.
They both or both of them heard you all, and they both over here is what gender? Feminine. Sami'ata, right? So they both feminine heard all of you. Samiratan. Sami'tiha. Sami'ti. You.
You all.
No, you. DJ, سمعتها.
You heard them. All.
Ha.
You heard her.
Yeah. سمعتها, you heard her, or you heard it, right? Depending on what the ha goes back to. سمعتها, you heard her, or you heard it. Amira, 11.
She asked you both.
Yeah, she asked both of you. She asked both of you. طيب, 12.
سألوها. They masculine asked her, female.
Yeah, they asked her. Her is female.
She is
her female. سألوها, they asked her. They asked her. Abdurrahman, 13.
سألتها. I asked.
I asked her. 14, Grant.
سألنا they feminine asked us.
They feminine asked us. Good. Let's see. Sa'ad. 15.
سألناكم. We all asked you.
We all asked you. You all. Right. We asked all of you. Muhammad Mardini. 16.
We
سألتما.
they both
It's not they both. سألتما. Isa. سألتما هما.
You both asked them to.
Yeah, you both asked both of them or them too. You both سألتما asked both of them. 17, Bayan.
سألت
There should be a there should be a there should be a sukoon on the lam, a fatha on the ta.
سألته.
Sorry. Don't take that back. Take that back. It is the way it is. There should be fatha on the ta, but it is the way it is. Go ahead, read it again.
سألته.
سألته, which you said was?
They both feminine asked him.
Yeah, they both سألته, they both feminine asked him. Joseph, 18.
سأله. It is that they both asked him.
They both masculine asked him. Michelle, 19.
سألتهم.
سألتهم.
You asked them.
Yeah, you feminine asked them. Rama, 20.
سألتنهم. You all feminine asked them.
Did you say feminist?
Feminine, sorry.
Yeah, no, on the first one where you corrected it.
Honestly, I think so. Sorry to twist.
Honestly, I think so, right?
I think she's honest.
سألتنهم. You all feminine asked them. 21, Maryam.
ظلمتهن.
ظلمت.
Sorry. ظلمتهن. She oppressed them feminine.
She oppressed them feminine. She oppressed them feminine. Malik, 22. Huh? Did I say something?
No.
She oppressed them feminine. 22, Malik.
ظلمهم. He oppressed them.
He oppressed them. Abdul Karim, 23. Bayan, 23.
ظلمتماني. You both feminine oppressed me.
Why make it feminine?
I got confused because of the ta.
So retranslate it.
ظلمتماني. You both oppressed me.
Yeah, you ظلمتماني. You both oppressed me. Grant, 24.
ظلمتها. You feminine oppressed her.
You oppressed her. طيب, 25.
ظلموهما. They oppressed those two. They all oppressed those two.
Yeah, they oppressed both of them.
Mhm.
They oppressed both of them. Selma, 26. Mhm.
You all feminine oppressed us.
You all feminine oppressed us. Mardini, Muhammad, 27.
We oppressed.
We oppressed him. DJ 28.
They both oppressed.
Read the Arabic.
Whatever. They both oppressed. You all, both of you.
They, both of them oppressed both of you. Both of them oppressed both of you. Samira 29. Saad 29. Naam Tuki. I oppressed you, female. 30, Abdurrahman.
They both.
Isa.
They all feminine oppressed you.
They all feminine oppressed you, masculine. Zalamnaka, they all feminine oppressed you, masculine. It says translate the following sentences from English to Arabic using the attached pronouns. Place all harakat. Let's do this. Do 1 through 10 on your own. Write all your wrong answers in pencil so you can correct them. 1 through 10. You can write your correct answers in pen.
This
Or write your correct answer.
it's is it telling us to write it as جملة اسمية or جملة فعلية.
جملة فعلية. Good question. جملة فعلية. Did he go up for two? Yeah. Yeah, can you? Sorry, just make it something. That's why he went out, right?
You're right here, like, it was right in front of you.
I was doing this in during the weekend. Which kids are doing?
It's all the people getting the notes. It's the big class.
Oh.
A lot of tissues needed.
We don't want you to have to leave next time. We don't want you to have to leave next time.
Thank you.
But I also hate it when all of a sudden it just goes missing every weekend, every Monday, in both classes. Tissue box go missing. Biggest pet peeve.
First time.
First time. Okay, let's look at the first 10. The first one says, the pious one helped us. The pious one helped us. Yeah, Grant, what do you have? Whoa, one more time. Sorry, what'd you say? Good. نصرنا الصالح. نصرنا الصالح. Yes.
Is it Muhsinu or Sinu?
This is the pious one.
What's Al-Muhsin? Al-Muhsinu.
Al-Muhsin is the one who Al-Muhsin is the one who practices ihsan. Al-Muhsin is the one who practices ihsan. Ihsan can be translated as excellence, perfection, doing what is best. So technically, as-salih would be more appropriate here, I would say. نصرنا الصالح. After that, number 2 says, someone read the, Tayyib, read the English.
We help them.
We helped them. What's the answer?
Now Nasarnahum.
Nasarnahum. Good. Nasarnahum. Number 3, you guys have she helped me. Yes? DJ? Nasaratni. Nasaratni. 4, I helped her, Salma. Nasartuha. 5, all of you helped them. Oh, sorry, all of you helped him, correct?
Yeah.
All of you helped him. Abdurrahman? Good. Nasartumuhu.
The word sa'ad also means help.
Say it again. Sa'ada also be help.
Could you
This is that instance where you this is all one word and just but nasartumuhu, this is that instance where you add the extra wow, right? That wow over here is extra because without it, it just becomes difficult. Nasartumhu, right?
like what's the way to know when to add the wow?
Whenever you have the tum conjugation, the entum conjugation, and you're adding a pronoun.
So instead of nasartuna,
Nasartumhu.
Sounds weird.
Huh?
It doesn't flow.
Yeah, it doesn't
oh,
flow.
it's that,
Yeah, it's the entum conjugation.
not,
No, because you would go nasartumahu. The entuma conjugation, nasartuma plus who? Nasartumahu. Nasartumaha. Nasartumakum. You could add anything.
Nasartunna sounds okay as well.
Huh?
Nasartunnahu.
Yeah, that's fine, right? But it's the entum conjugation specifically that we add the extra wow, right?
Sorry, same. It doesn't apply to the hum. Nasarhum. Wait, that's not
The hum would be nasaru.
Nasaru.
It already has
it
the
already
wow.
has-
You don't
yeah,
need to.
okay.
You don't need to add it. What number was that? That was 5. Yes. It says 6 is he helped all of you. Muhammad Mardini. Nasarakum. 7 Bayan. Yes.
Could you say the last one?
Nasartumuhu.
With feminine, how do you say it?
Change the first part to feminine.
The second part. The tune.
Nasartunnahu. Nasartunnahu. There you would not add it. Bayan 7.
Both of them helped both of you. Nasarakuma.
Good. Nasarakuma. Saad, read 8. You feminine helped us. What's the answer? Huh? You feminine helped us. You feminine helped, which is and us. Saad.
Sure, I think he said the right
You
answer.
said it the first time.
Nasartina. He said that.
You said nas. Oh, you did? Okay. So my apologies. Nasartina. You feminine helped us. 9. 9. Let's go. 9, Michelle.
Both of you helped them. Nasartumahum or Nasartunna.
No. Both of you helped.
Oh,
Say,
sorry, Nasartumahum.
do you have helped them feminine?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's helped them feminine. Nasartuma.
Hunna.
There we go. Nasartuma hunna. Nasartuma hunna was at 9. 10. We helped both of you. Rama. We helped both of you.
Nasarnakuma.
Nasarnakuma. Just so it doesn't get excessively boring, we'll return to the exercise. Someone remind me. We have 11 through 30 left, right? Go to Jewel 8. Translate 1 through 14. One through 14. Go ahead and translate.
Is used more as recite or read, or like interchangeable?
Both interchangeable. No. What are you thinking? Uh-huh.
So the Islam show is not bringing that. The whole of and then it's just bringing that.
Yeah, الأولاد is مشار إليه. أولئك is the مضاف إليه.
And that even makes more sense. Trying to give you two. But with all of those children.
Mhm.
feel like makes the translation.
Does the translation make sense?
No, I'm saying like it matches.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what you're like. Because
Yeah, I think no, I think
what's the issue?
no, I thought this was to be blue. But then I forgot that that you can be in the and I thought it was trying to point people I thought the whole thing was that
Yeah.
that is what shows.
أولئك is the مضاف إليه.
Mhm.
And then the مشار إليه is الأولاد. You were trying to think the whole idea of pointing any إضافة. Okay, yeah.
It's putting
Yeah.
not
Yeah, so for example, if it was كل الأولاد, we would have to say أولئك.
after.
Yeah.
I think I have all the same questions that you have now that I got to it.
Four?
Yeah, so what's, is it, she studied all those children?
No. كل is the فاعل. First of all, it's not she studied, it's درس.
Tell us,
Is
oh. Well,
it has the مفعول به.
Number.
At the end, 14.
Question 13. Couldn't figure out what they're like Akila was repeated. So I heard that you all ate. And then what's Akila?
Akla is Akala ya'kulu. Aklan. Right, first of all, it's a masdar, but the meaning of akl over here is food. So I heard you all ate the food of your father.
So Aklan is food.
Yeah. Over here, akla is food, but aklan in the context of akala ya'kulu, to eat, eating. Aklan is eating, it's the act. But akla over here can be used as the word food. Okay. All right, let's go. Grant, read number 1.
قرأ ابنهما القرآن كل يوم.
كل.
كل يوم.
Read it again.
قرأ ابنهما القرآن كل يوم.
Translate.
The son of two of them read the Quran every day.
You just their son.
The son.
Their son.
Their son.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say two of their son. You would just say
their son parentheses 2.
Okay. Their son read the Quran every day.
Yeah, their son read the Quran every day. 2, Abdurrahman, read the Arabic.
They studied the past verb with him.
The past tense verb with him. They studied the past tense verb with him. Sa'ad, 3. The woman read. The woman read that book. The woman read that book. Salma, 4.
All these boys and children studied it.
Yeah, all of those boys, all of those children studied it. Bayan, 5.
سأل أصحابه عنكم.
Try read it again.
Huh?
Read it again.
سأل أصحابه عنكم. He asked his friends about you all.
سأل أصحابه عنكم. Try again. سأل أصحابه عنكم.
سأل أصحابه عنكم. He asked.
No, it's not he asked. طيب.
سأل أصحابه عنكم. أصحابه, his companions, asked about you all.
Yeah, his companions or his friends asked about all of you. Bayan, the fa'il is ashabu. Right? The doer is ashabu. They did the asking. So his companions, his friends asked about all of you. 6, Muhammad Mardini. The teacher helped us. Naam. DJ, 7.
We helped the teacher.
Yeah, late. We helped the teacher. 8. Joseph. You're on mute. There we go.
Abadallahi, Imamu, and Babil Masjidi.
عبد الله الإمام عند باب المسجد, which means Rama.
The Imam worshipped Allah at the door of the masjid.
Yeah, the Imam worshipped Allah at the door of the masjid. Over here you have a maf'ul, it's muqaddam, right? It's brought before the word Imam. But the Imam worshipped Allah at the door of the masjid. Noor, 9. Yeah, go ahead.
So Allah,
now it's going to give Noor time to think about 9. So we're going to change the person. Go ahead.
Is that for like rhetorical purposes?
It can be for rhetorical purposes to put the focus on Allah. Sometimes the maf'ul is brought forward to kind of focus or put the emphasis on that. Michelle, 9. We'll come back to you, Noor.
سألت أصحابه عنكم.
Read it again. Michelle?
سألت أصحابه عنكم. The
سألت.
I asked,
Okay. I asked أصحابه.
like the pious one?
No.
Oh, the
We just translate
companion.
سأل أصحابه عنكم. His companions or his friends asked about you all. This is 9. سألت أصحابه عنكم. Maryam Khidr. DJ.
Oh, yes.
Saad. This is taking too long. Yeah, I asked his friends about all of you. I asked سألت أصحابه, his friends about all of you. Rama, 10.
Number 10. دخلنا الغرفة الصغيرة اليوم. We entered the small room today.
We entered the small room today. Good. Rama, do the i'rab of al-ghurfata quickly.
الغرفة مفعول به منصوب وعلامة نصبه الفتحة.
Good. She said مفعول به منصوب وعلامة نصبه الفتحة. الصغيرة.
الصغيرة صفة منصوب وعلامة نصبها الفتحة.
صفة منصوب وعلامة نصبه الفتحة. اليوم. راما.
اليوم is the was it the حال? No, not that. The مفعول. No.
I can hear people turning pages right now. Go ahead, Rama. What is it?
The مفعول مطلق.
No. It's not the مفعول المطلق. It's not emphasizing.
مفعول فيه.
مفعول فيه. Continue.
مفعول فيه منصوب وعلامة نصبه الفتحة.
نعم مفعول فيه وعلامة نصبه الفتحة. Remember, just as a quick review, مفعول به, who or what the verb was or the action was done to, right? Then there was مفعول فيه, which was more about when and where, location or time, right? Then there was مفعول له or مفعول لأجله, why the action was done. Then there was مفعول مطلق, which is emphasizing it or describing it or the number of times it happened, right? Then there was 2 other things that got added to all of that. The first was hal. We said hal is not a maf'ul, but it describes the condition or the state many times of the doer, but not always of the doer. And then the last was just basically if you have a jar and a majroor in a jumla fi'liya, basically that fragment, you're going to call it, instead of calling it متعلق بالخبر, like you did in jumla ismiyas, you call it متعلق بالفعل. Good. Noor, 11.
عرفتنا أمهاتكم الطيبات. We recognized your peer mothers.
Try again.
We recognized your mother's.
Yeah, Noor. Arafat. Is that we recognize?
Oh, she recognized. No?
Who is she? عرفتنا أمهاتكم الطيبات. Bayan.
Is it she introduced us?
She didn't do anything. She did not do anything. Stop blaming her. She did not. She did not do anything. ما ذنبها. Maryam,
Your pure mothers recognize us.
your pure mothers recognized us. The verb is عرفت, singular feminine. أمهات is your فاعل. الطيبات is the صفة. As for the na that is attached to عرفت, that is your مفعول به, right? So عرفتنا أمهاتكم الطيبات. Your pure mothers recognized us. 12 Sa'd. We read some of the book. No, I'll give you another shot. 13.
سمعت أنكم أكلتم أكل أبيكم. I don't know, man.
No, did you finish finals?
Did I what?
You finished finals
Yes.
last week?
Yeah.
What was your hardest final?
I took this RStudio data class.
What was it?
RStudio.
RStudio? Maher? Is it art or is it?
R.
It's a coding class?
Yeah.
That was your hardest final?
Yeah.
Wrong. It's going to be Arabic. Go ahead, try it. Come on. Noor. سمعت أن. Which one did I give her? That one? 13. سمعت Noor.
I listened.
Okay, I listened. I heard. أنكم.
I heard that you
All.
I heard that you all
أكلتم. Killing me, Noor. Abdurrahman. I heard that you all ate your father's food. Good. I heard سمعت أنكم that all of you or that you all أكلتم ate أكل أبيكم. أكل over here. Although it is the masdar أكل يأكل أكلا, it can also refer to food itself. So I heard that all of you ate your father's food. Good. Amira, do the i'rab of Abi.
أبي مضاف إليه مجرور وعلامة جره الياء لأنه من الأسماء الخمسة.
Good. She said أبي مضاف إليه مجرور وعلامة جره is the ياء لأنه من الأسماء الخمسة, because it is from those 5 nouns that if they're used properly, then there'll be رفع through a waw, mansubun through an alif, and majrurun through a yeah. Yes, Grant, you had a question.
Is it necessary to have the kum attached to the harf and the tune to the verb?
Like, because you see it as repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no other way. There's no other way to do it. Why? Because anna needs an ism, right? So it needs an ism, right? So if you said sami'tu anna akaltum, it's just wrong. And if you said sami'tu annakum, and then you just run into a difficult situation of how you're going to conjugate that verb and refer to them eating without adding the tun. Right. They are repetitive, but they're different because kum is a damir, right? It's an attached pronoun. As for akaltum, it's simply just a conjugation of a verb, right?
So the khabar of anna is the whole sentence?
The khabar of anna is, yes, it's the entire sentence. Annakum akaltum akla abikum. Who else? Okay, 14, yeah, Michelle.
سألهم الرجل عن أموالهم. Um, the man
Uh-huh. سألهم. The man سألهم. What did he do?
the man asked them
Okay. The man asked them عن أموالهم.
about um
About what, Mardini? Muhammad?
your wealth.
Their wealth. See, people respond faster when you call another thing. People respond faster. It's just, I don't know, it's always. Yes. سألهم الرجل عن أموالهم. The man asked them about their wealth. Good. Okay. Open up your Qasas books.
Can we take a break today?
Take a 5-minute break. Try to go through without. All right, let's go. Open up your Qasas al-Nabiyyin books. We did 10. We didn't do 10, right? 9 was our last one. Am I right? Somebody?
I don't have any notes on 10.
Yeah. 9 is the last one we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Bayan, read 10.
كان في المدينة ملك كبير جدا وظالم جدا وكان الناس يسجدون للملك وسمع الملك أن إبراهيم يسجد لله ولا يسجد لأحد فغضب الملك وطلب إبراهيم وجاء إبراهيم وكان إبراهيم لا يخاف أحدا إلا الله قال الملك من ربك يا إبراهيم قال إبراهيم ربي الله قال الملك من الله يا إبراهيم قال إبراهيم الذي يحيي ويميت قال الملك أنا أحيي وأميت
Stop. Noor, read from there. ودع الملك.
ودعا الملك رجلا وقتله ودعا رجلا آخر وتركه وقال أنا أحيي وأميت قتلت رجلا وتركت رجلا وكان الملك بليدا جدا وكذلك كل مشرك وأراد إبراهيم أن يفهم الملك ويفهم قومه فقال إبراهيم للملك فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب فتهير الملك وسكت وخجل الملك وجد جوابا.
نعم. أمام الملك. Isa means in front of the king. كان في المدينة ملك كبير جدا. Grant.
There was in the city a very big king.
Yeah. In the city, I would say in the city, there was a very big king, right? You could even say great king. In the city, there was a big king or a great king. وظالم جدا. Grant.
And very oppressive.
وكان الناس يسجدون للملك. طيب.
The people used to prostrate to
the
king.
The people used to prostrate to the king. وسمع الملك أن إبراهيم يسجد لله ولا يسجد لأحد. عبد الرحمن.
And the king heard
that
indeed Ibrahim prostrates to Allah and does not prostrate to
anyone. And the king heard that Ibrahim prostrates to Allah and does not prostrate to anyone. فغضب الملك وطلب إبراهيم. سلمى. Yeah, the king was angered and requested for Ibrahim. وجاء إبراهيم وكان إبراهيم لا يخاف أحدا إلا الله. Bayan.
And Ibrahim came, and Ibrahim did not fear anyone except for Allah.
قال الملك من ربك يا إبراهيم. سعد. The king said, who is your Lord, Ibrahim? قال إبراهيم ربي الله. Ibrahim said, my Lord is Allah. قال الملك. The king said, من الله يا إبراهيم. Who is Allah, O Ibrahim? قال Ibrahim said, الذي يحيي ويميت. Amira.
Ibrahim said, the one who gives life and
gives death. The one who gives life and gives death. قال الملك. The king said, أنا أحيي وأميت. طيب.
The king said, I give life and death.
Yeah, I give life and death. ودع الملك رجلا وقتله. عيسى.
The king called a man and he killed him.
The king called a man and he killed him. ودعا رجلا آخر وتركه grant
And
and he
called a man,
another man.
and left him.
Yeah, left him. In parentheses, you could put freed him, right? وَدَعَا رَجُلًا آخَرَ, that he called another man, meaning he called for another man. وَتَرَكَهُ, and left him, meaning he freed him. وَقَالَ أَنَا أُحْيِي وَأُمِيتُ, and he said, I give life and I give death. قَتَلْتُ رَجُلًا, I killed a man. وَتَرَكْتُ رَجُلًا, and I basically left the man, meaning I allowed him to live. وَكَانَ الْمَلِكُ بَلِيدًا جِدًّا. Abdurrahman?
And the king was very dumb.
Yeah, the king was very dumb, stupid. وَكَذَلِكَ كُلُّ مُشْرِكٍ. Muhammad Mardini? Saad? And thus or like that, every polytheist. Meaning, and like that, so is every polytheist, you could say. وأراد إبراهيم أن يفهم الملك ويفهم قومه. طيب.
Ibrahim wanted that
فهما.
What's my meaning again, please?
To understand.
And Ibrahim wanted that the king would understand.
Wanted the king to understand.
Wanted the king to understand.
Yeah, and Ibrahim wanted the king to understand. وَيَفْهَمَ قَوْمُهُ,
and his people.
And his people to understand, right? And Ibrahim wanted the king to understand and his people to understand. And over here is making the verb يَفْهَمَ mansub, and then the waw al-'atf, the waw is carrying that action onto the second يَفْهَمَ as well, right? And just paying attention when you read, right? Noticing when the fa'ils change, right? So you have وَأَرَادَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ أَنْ يَفْهَمَ الْمَلِكُ وَيَفْهَمَ قَوْمُهُ. That the first part of it, Ibrahim is obviously the fa'il, and then the malik is the fa'il, and then the word قوم is the fa'il. فقال إبراهيم للملك, so Ibrahim said to the king, فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب. Abdurrahman.
So indeed Allah brings the sun from the east, so bring it from the west.
نعم. The verb أتى يأتي. The verb أتى يأتي. What does it mean?
Bring.
Huh? Yeah, to come. Right? But whenever the verb أتى يأتي is used with the harf jar or in conjunction with the harf jar ba, it means to bring. Clear? So أتى to come, أتى bi to bring. So فإن الله يأتي بالشمس. Indeed, Allah brings the sun من المشرق, from the east. فأتي, which is the command, which would without the fa would be ائتي, right? ائتي. فأتي بها من المغرب, so you bring it from the west. فتحير الملك وسكت. سلمى. Yeah, the king was confused and remained silent. The verb is تحير يتحير, to be confused, to be dismayed, right? Family number 5. Family 5. Abdurrahman. تحير. Good. وسكت, and he remained silent. You've taken سكت with Sheikh Aisha? No? سكت يسكت سكوتا. وخجل الملك وما وجد جوابا. رامة.
And the king became embarrassed and he didn't find an answer.
Yeah. وخجل الملك, the king became embarrassed. خجل. وما وجد وجوابا, and he didn't find a response, or he didn't find an answer. Right? Ma is commonly used to negate past tense verbs. وما وجد جوابا. Michelle, read Da'watul Walid 11.
دعوة الوالد وأراد إبراهيم أن يدعو والده أيضا فقال له يا أبت لم تعبد ما لا يسمع ولا يبصر ولم تعبد ما لا ينفع ولا يضر يا أبت لا تعبد الشيطان يا أبت اعبد الرحمن وغضب والد إبراهيم وقال أنا أضربك أضربك فاتركني ولا تقل شيئا وكان إبراهيم حليما فقال لوالده سلام عليك وقال له أنا أذهب من هنا
وأدعو
ربي وتأسف إبراهيم جدا وأراد أن يذهب إلى بلد آخر ويعبد ربه ويدعو الناس إلى الله.
Da'watul Walid, which we can translate as the calling of the father or the invitation of the father. It's referring to Ibrahim inviting his father or calling his father to monotheism. So Da'watul Walid, the calling of the father or the invitation of the father. وأراد إبراهيم أن يدعو والده أيضا فقال له سلمى. وأراد إبراهيم. Translate. So he said to him, so Ibrahim wanted to call his father as well or also. فقال له, so he said to him, يا أبت لم تعبد ما لا يسمع ولا يبصر. Grant.
What's abati?
It's a form of endearment, but basically it's a way of saying, oh my dear father.
Oh my dear father, why do you worship what does not listen and does not see?
Good. Oh my dear father, lima is basically limadha, which is why, shortened, right? So lima, why, ta'budu, do you worship, ma, that which, ma over here, this type of ma is called ma al-mawsula. It's similar to the word alladhi, the one which, right? So why do you worship that which la yasma'u, does not hear, wala yubsiru, and does not see? What type of lam is this? طيب?
نافية.
Lamun nafiya has no effect on the verb. Walima ta'budu. Sorry, before we get there. The verb yad'u. What's the madi? Da'a. You haven't taken it because once again, weak letter. But da'a yad'u. The verb is da'a yad'u. Really quickly, the mudari is yad'u. In its normal form, if no harfun nasb or harfun jazm precedes it, it's going to be yad'u. What's going to be on the waw? Yad'u. A sukun. Okay? A sukun. That's how it is normally. Yad'u. If it's mansub, meaning preceded by an, lan, likay, hatta, idhan, it's going to be a fatha. Yad'uwa, as you see it on the screen or on your books. Yad'uwa. If it's preceded by lam, lamma, lamul amr, lamun nahiya, right? Any of those, then the weak letter will get dropped. Okay? It will become yad'u. And the waw will no longer be there. Clear? So the way it becomes majzoom when you have a verb that ends in a weak letter is you drop or omit the weak letter. Because you can't put a sukoon on it, already has a sukoon. So you can't make it majzoom by putting a sukoon on it. Yes?
But you would only So if it's written. Cause doesn't it not sound easy?
It kind of does because if it's yad'u as opposed to yad'u, slightly it's stretched when you have the waw, and it's not stretched. So it does slightly sound different if you pick up on it. وَلِمَ تَعْبُدُ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُ وَلَا يَضُرُّ. Sa'ad? Yeah, and why do you worship that which does not benefit nor harm? Ya abati la ta'budi shaytan. Muhammad? Yeah, don't, oh my father, don't worship shaitan. What type of lam is that, Salma? Lamun nahiya. And what state is the verb in? Ta. It's what? A verb can never be majroor. Can either be marfu', mansub, or majzoom, but majroor is not an option. Isa?
Majzoom.
Huh?
Majzoom.
It's majzoom. The kasra is there for readability, to connect it to the next word, right? The verb is majzoom. Even if you were to look at it the way it is with the kasra, the verb is majzoom because the lam nahiya, right? As for the kasra, it's there to connect it to the next word. La ta'budi shaytan. Ya abati i'budi ar-Rahman. Oh my dear father, worship ar-Rahman. Abada ya'budu. The command is u'bud. Right? Ya abati i'budi ar-Rahman. Because the word before is abati and the ta has a kasra. And in u'bud, that hamza is called hamzatul wasl. It's a connecting hamza, right? So in reality, what's going to happen is you're going to connect the previous word to it, and you're not going to say Ya abati u'budi ar-Rahman, but rather more correctly, if you're reading, you would say Ya abati u'budi ar-Rahman.
Is this one of those? Is this abada ya'budu? Is that
U'bud.
that's the command?
Yeah, that's the command. Abada ya'budu u'bud. Right? We look at the ba in ya'budu, right? Has a dhamma. So the first letter will have a dhamma, and the middle and the ba will also have a dhamma in the command. So, oh my dear father, worship the most merciful. وَغَضِبَ وَالِدُ Ibrahim, the father of Ibrahim became angry. وَقَالَ, and he said, أَنَا أَضْرِبُكَ, I will hit you or strike you. فَاتْرُكْنِي, so leave me. وَلَا تَقُلْ شَيْئًا. وَلَا تَقُلْ شَيْئًا, Grant.
And do not say a thing.
Yeah, do not say anything. The verb to say, Amira, is قَالَ يَقُولُ. قَالَ يَقُولُ. What happened to the waw? Why? Explain further. What's the verb with the waw?
It's not that.
It's not the amr.
Oh yeah. It's and it's qala yaqulu, and then this is anta.
Anta taqulu.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is the lam is lamun nahiya.
Okay.
So
we're getting somewhere.
So it makes it majzoom.
Okay.
So
Still the next one. Taqul is majzoom. You're absolutely right. The lam has a sukun on it.
So
why? Huh?
Do we put?
If you put, so it would take a sukoon, but then the waw already would have a sukoon. You would have, it's called
iltiqa'u sakinain. Iltiqa'u sakinain. When two sukoons meet each other. Two sukoons meet each other, it becomes impossible to pronounce. So you have taqulu, the waw has a sukoon, put a lamun nahiya before it, your lam has to have a sukoon. Now you have an issue because now you have taqul, right? That's what you have essentially. You have taqul, and you don't do that. So what do? You drop out the waw, right? So you end up with taqul. Clear? You were right. You were missing that part of it. ولا تقل شيئا, and do not say anything. وكان إبراهيم حليما, and Ibrahim was what, طيب?
Soft-hearted.
Soft-hearted, gentle, also حليما, forbearing, extremely patient, meaning فقال لوالده, so he said to his father, سلام عليك, like may protection be upon you. وقال له, and he said to him, أنا أذهب من هنا, that I will go from here, هنا, وأدعو ربي, and I will call upon my Lord, right? Like over here, وأدعو ربي doesn't mean that I will, like, but it means I will supplicate to my Lord. Because ad'u can have two connotations. Ad'u can have the connotation of supplication. It can also have the connotation of inviting to. If it means supplicating to, then it will be like it is here. Ad'u Rabbi. Supplicating. If it's calling to Allah, then it's going to be ad'u ila Rabbi. Clear? وَتَأَسَّفَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ. تَأَسَّفَ, Grant, do you know?
No.
Abdurrahman?
Sorry.
Regret. وتأسف إبراهيم, that Ibrahim felt very regretful. وأراد أن يذهب إلى بلد آخر, and he wanted to go to another land, another town. ويعبد ربه, and to worship his Lord. Over here, an is going to affect three verbs essentially. يذهب, يعبد, and يدعو. Right, all of it because of the wow. So Ibrahim wanted to go to a different land and worship his Lord and call people to Allah. Over here, this is call people to Allah. Good. Excellent. We'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Guys, practice reading. It should just like flow, and then practice reading without vowel signs. I know you guys want a quiz this week, but I'm not going to give one this week. Just so you know what that's. Huh? I can't tell you. We're not allowed to. This instructor is not allowed to disclose certain information. No.
Long quiz.
But Tayyib did send me on Friday night. Friday night? Friday night? Thursday night. Sent me a long voice note, basically claiming that he believes he got 100.
And what do you believe?
Huh?
What do you think?
I believe that Allah is one.
That's what I'm really sure of.
In other words, you don't have yaqeen in him.
Huh?
You don't have certainty in him.
The only certainty in life is death.
Okay.
But I'm hopeful.